Hi, and welcome to the Your Mac Life Show, 1065, this Wednesday, the 7th of October, 2015. Today, Shawn will be talking to Jim Dalrymple, and he'll be talking about Steve Jobs and Porsche cars. Have no idea why. And in the starting point photography portion, we'll be talking about photo walks. And last weekend was the Scott Kelby photo walk all around the world. So without further adieu, here is your host, Shawn King.
That's me. Just asking you, as Kim said, Jim Dalrymple, Porsche, Steve Jobs, photo walking. How many of you guys have installed El Capitan on your machines? She said. Just ask the IRC chat room. MacMan has, but he's running it since the second public beta. Sherry, no. DJ, yes. ArcSign, yes. Sly, no. P. Booth has it on a laptop, but not his main machine. I haven't yet, because I haven't yet found out from the folks at Wirecast whether the version of Wirecast I'm using is compatible with El Capitan. And because I run the show, all of this stuff that you're seeing is happening because of Wirecast. I'm not going to upgrade until I know for a fact that will work. I know already the folks at Tidbits have said Levelator doesn't work, and you have to do a incantation to get it to work. Folks are having trouble with Lightroom, which is another app I use frequently. Trouble with Lightroom under El Capitan. So until all that stuff shakes out, I'm not going to install it because I need stuff to work. That stuff is more important to me than any feature upgrades with El Capitan. There's nothing in El Capitan that makes me go, oh, I have to install it right away, immediately, now. So I'm okay with not doing that just yet. What was I going to say? Crap. Oh, as always, email onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. Let me know if you are running El Capitan. If you have any problems with it, if you're having any issues at all, send me an email to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. As always, we encourage you to go to our website, yourmaclifeshow.com. On the left-hand side of the page, there is a way to subscribe to the show. It's a free show, but if you'd like to subscribe, you can for $2, $5, $10, $15 a month, whatever it is that you'd like. You can pay it out of your PayPal account or out of your major credit card. It sends us money each month out of your account, and it helps us. It supports the show. If you want to support the show, that's a great way to do it. Another way is if you're going to buy stuff at Amazon.com, come to our site first. And that's weird, but listen. You come to our site, left-hand side of the page, you click on any one of the Amazon links that I posted up there of stuff I like or I bought or things like that. If you buy that thing, we get a kickback. If you buy anything from Amazon.com after going through our link, anything at all, whether you buy that thing or not, we also get a small kickback. It's like 10 cents on the $100. It's not a whole lot, but it gives me some Amazon bucks that I use to buy stuff, routers and cables and things like that. So if you get a chance to do that, please do that, especially as the holiday buying season is coming up. Oh, by the way, this weekend is the Thanksgiving Day. Do you have Thanksgiving in the UK?
No.
No, of course not. I just realized that. As I was saying it, was
We've always been there.
That's right. There's no reason to have Thanksgiving.
No, we don't have to give thanks for having arrived somewhere. We've always been there.
Yeah, fair point. I hadn't thought of that. I remember I've told the story many times. I think I've told it to you. When I first moved to Nashville, and the first Thanksgiving that came up, American Thanksgiving, is held in November. Last Thursday in November, I believe. And very nicely, because Southerners are friendly people, they would say, Happy Thanksgiving, Shawn. I would say, well, thanks, but I'm Canadian. We had ours in October. And they were like, really? Yeah, we have Thanksgiving a month early. Really? Yeah. And then my evil brain took over, and I said, we have all of our holidays a month earlier than in America to differentiate ourselves from Americans. Really? Yeah. Christmas is November 25th. New Year's is November 31st, or 30th, as the case may be. Valentine's is in January 14th. Easter is, and they're all like, really? I'm like, yeah. It's like, oh my God, read a book! About half of them believe me when I told them that all the holidays were a month early in Canada. Because, do you know why Canadian Thanksgiving is a month early?
It's something to do with when you landed, I would hope.
No, nothing to do with that at all. Thanksgiving is a holiday, is a harvest feast. And in Canada, because our seasons are shorter, our harvest is a month earlier. So that's why we have our Thanksgiving a month earlier.
See, we have Harvest Festival in England.
So similar kind of.
Yeah, we give thanks for the harvest, not for having arrived somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the Canadian is for the arriving anywhere. I think it's a similar harvest
to the British one.
I think most cultures that would have some sort of agrarian means farming.
Continue, please do.
Some sort of agrarian society probably has some sort of harvest festival, because it makes sense that you'd give thanks for the successful harvest or whatever it might be. So it's fine. So for your harvest festival, is it similar to our Thanksgiving that you eat certain foods? Is it a holiday or is it no? It's not.
No.
It's not like a bank holiday, things like that.
No, we just we bake huge loaves of bread that looks like sheaves of corn. It's very fancy looking. It's
really?
Cool. Yeah.
I've never seen that.
Yep. And we have
find me a picture of that.
like markets and stuff. It's
like farmers market.
Kind of, yeah, to celebrate the produce and wheat and stuff.
So now that you're in Canada, and you've been in Canada for quite a while, do you celebrate Thanksgiving or just not bother?
In Canada?
Yeah.
I do with my English come Canadian friends, yeah. Yeah, because I'm going to Norma's daughter's, my adopted sister, for Thanksgiving next weekend. This weekend, yeah.
Yeah, one of the great things about the Canadian Thanksgiving, I think we do it better than Americans, because they do it on Thursday, or America, does it on Thursday. But Canada, we do it on Friday, Sunday, and Monday. Friday, a lot of folks will take the Friday off.
We have a long weekend.
Because Monday is a holiday. But a lot of folks will have their Thanksgiving turkey on Sunday.
Yeah.
And or on Monday. It's especially good here in the 21st century, as we have so many more split families. You can go to your step parents' place on Sunday, and then your parents' place on Monday, or you can do. You go to the in-laws on one day, and then you go to your parents on the other day. It's kind of nice. Whereas in America, you only got one day. And it makes it kind of a mess trying to figure out which side of the family to have your holiday. At least here in Canada, we've got 2 days, kind of. People will have it. I think we always had ours on Thanksgiving Sunday. I think Monday was always the day that it was just a holiday, like any other holiday.
Yeah.
The big eating thing for us was always the Sunday. And my mother would cook everything. If it could fit in the oven, she'd cook everything. She always won. She never bought a Thanksgiving turkey. She always won the Thanksgiving turkey, same with Christmas turkey, at the local Legion.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because they had dart tournaments, like the weekend before, and she was such a great dart player. She was guaranteed of winning a turkey every single year. Wow. And this was like a 25-pound turkey. This was a gigantic bird. And she would cook a turkey and ham for me, because I love Thanksgiving ham. And then if she could get a hold of one, we'd sometimes have duck. We always had chicken. And then every vegetable known to mankind. There would be yams and sweet potatoes. And there would be 8 tons of peas and carrots.
That's what my mom used.
Mashed potatoes, and then 17 different pies. My mother would make. I love my mother. I still to this day remember the taste of my mother's blueberry pies. Now, it's probably just because of memory, but I've never had a blueberry pie as good as that in my entire life. I never liked cherry pies, but she always make a cherry pie. And then chocolate cake. Was your mom a big baker? Did she bake anything in particular?
No, not a lot. No.
No cookies or pies or anything like that?
No, not very often.
Everyone always came over to my mom's house, and everybody, it was buffet style, because we didn't have a table big enough. And so there was food on every flat surface of the house. Like the kitchen table had all the meat, and the kitchen counter had the veggies, and then in the living room in various places were the pies. And you couldn't touch the pies until everyone had gotten through the meat and veggies. And you'd have to go get seconds just to get firsts. You had to go get seconds because you didn't get all of it on your plate at the first time. There was nothing, but then the reverse is true when I was with my dad, and my stepmom in Nova Scotia. Bev, I love you, but she couldn't cook with a damn. She was an awful cook. I've never had a drier turkey in my life.
Oh, dear.
They were awful. Her mashed potatoes were terrible. Although, and I don't think you have, one of the things I discovered in America that was just amazingly delicious was deep fried turkey. It's incredibly dangerous to make a deep fried turkey, but oh my God, it was so good. If you've never been able to cook a turkey that had that was moist, you might want to think about doing a deep fried turkey, but only if you can do it safely. Because what you're doing is you're creating a hot oil bomb on your back porch. You're basically 25 pints of hot 400-degree oil that if you don't pay attention to it will explode in a giant fireball. Go to YouTube and do a search for deep fried turkey fails, and you'll see all kinds of people doing just the worst, dumbest things with deep fried turkeys. It's literally exploding. Oil, fat, grease everywhere. Just don't do it unless you can do it safely. Go to a friend's house who'll do it. Let him burn down his house. Makes much more sense, but it's really, really good. DJ McIntosh says he stays at home, has a Doctor Who marathon. Turducken. I've never had turducken. I've seen it, but I've never had turducken. You know what turducken is?
Yeah.
What is it?
I guess it's a combo of turkey, duck, and chicken.
No.
What is it?
It's not a combo. It's a chicken inside of a duck inside inside of a turkey.
Ah.
It was 3 layers. It's stupid. It's just, there's no reason to do it that way, but some people do it, and it's just dumb. DH creamed onions. Creamed onions? What are creamed onions?
That'd be nice. Well, it's a bit like onion, kind of when you have onion sauce. Yeah, I like onion sauce.
Red
Great
cabbage,
leeks.
pumpkin pie. We only have pumpkin pie this time of year, don't we? Because probably, I just realized why.
It's when they grow.
Thank you.
You harvest them.
Literally just ticked me in as I was saying that, because this is pumpkin season. Oh, dear. My poor brain just gets overworked at times. Later on the show, we'll be talking in our starting point photography segment about photo walks. Kim and I both did the 8th annual Scott Kelby photo walk. Had a great time. Had a lot of fun. I think, Kim, you got some good shots, didn't you?
Yeah.
I know I got a few, and we'll show some of those later on in the show. And we'll talk about how you can get involved in the photo walks in general, or this one in particular. We'll also talk to a good friend up next, Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. We're going to talk to him about Steve Jobs. The anniversary of his passing is 4 years. We're also going to talk to him about Porsche and whatever else comes to mind. This and much, much more coming up. This is Your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. Thank you guys very much for joining me here on this Wednesday evening. In our phone room now, we're talking to our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
I'm good, Shawn. How are you?
I am good. You said something very interesting, and I would say rather not unusual, but interesting on Twitter earlier this week. On the anniversary of Steve Jobs' death, you wrote on Twitter very simply, "I still miss Steve." Why do you miss him?
Good question. But there was nobody like him. You know, and, I mean, he was a very unique person. And I miss the ideas and things that he would have had.
Do you think Apple is, I won't say better off, but is different now that Jobs is gone, that Cook has taken over? You think it would have been the same company if Steve Jobs was still running it?
No, it wouldn't have been the same company.
How would it be different?
I mean, well, I think that certainly Tim's, you know, the HRC thing, the Human Rights Campaign, and all of that would have been a lot different. I mean, Steve always, I think, supported the people at Apple, and you know as well as anybody, it was always a very diverse group at Apple.
Yes.
So, you know, Steve wanted the best people. And that's continued, but I think that Tim is just being more public about it.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting example of how your own personality, how your own values informs your actions. We all know Jobs certainly wasn't homophobic or anything else along those lines, but he didn't seem to, at least publicly, care as much about this kind of stuff that obviously Tim Cook does. I think the company's better off for that, too. I'm not saying the company's better off overall, I think it is, with Tim Cook, but I think in that respect, the company certainly has changed significantly in its viewpoint over the last 4 years.
Well, you can't argue that Tim hasn't done a good job.
Yeah.
I mean, Apple's more profitable and valuable than it's ever been. So it's hard to say that somebody else besides Tim could have led Apple to where it is now. But, you know, with anybody else, it would have been different. If they had to put Phil in charge, or they had to put Johnny in charge, or, you know, whoever, it would have been a different company than what it is now. And, you know, I think Apple has a focus on the products, but Apple also has a focus on society too.
Is that focus a good thing for Apple, or is it something that distracts the company?
No, I don't think it's distracting. I think that Apple probably always did have, you know, a bit of a focus on social, but now it's just more public.
Yes.
You know, Tim will write a letter, and you know, and I think that it's not that Tim writes a letter asking for equal rights for people. I think it's more that Tim acts on what he believes. You know, so for that, I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
Because he's not just saying to other companies or governments or people, you know, this is how we should treat people. He's implementing that himself.
Yeah.
And, you know, Tim is the head of a company that has more money than a lot of countries. So, you know, his power and influence, I don't think, can be underestimated.
Trying to figure out how to say this nicely, but I can't be bothered. Over at Mac Observer, Dave Hamilton, who by the way is a nice guy, and I like Dave, and I've known Dave for 15 years. So take this slam for a friend slamming him. He writes, Steve Jobs stories need to be told. Stop fighting about books and movies. It's obviously in response to all the stories we've seen recently, both about the documentary, Steve Jobs, The Man in the Machine, and the upcoming movie, Steve Jobs, with Michael Fassbender, written by Aaron Sorkin, opening this Friday, and the controversy surrounding both of those films. Dave's argument is that there's no one true source of information about Steve Jobs, and that's true. There's obviously reality is different for everybody. But one of the things that Dave writes that I think is really odd, he says, wouldn't it be a shame if future generations' research yielded all this fighting about which person was wrong about Steve Jobs? Much better would be for them to find your story. He says, if you have one, log it somewhere or convince someone else to log it for you. We have a responsibility to future generations to document one of the most influential humans the world has ever seen. We have the capability to do that very thing, due in no small part to that very person. Let's get it done. His argument is that we should be writing down our Steve Jobs stories. We should be passing on the oral history as we see it of Steve Jobs. We should allow, as he said, as Dave said, future generations to know our stories about Steve Jobs. Do you agree with that?
I don't see that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, anything with Steve is going to be big. Anything. Because there's a lot of people that didn't like him. There's a lot of people that did like him. Steve had some very close friends and family, and they don't like how he's being portrayed in this movie.
Yeah.
I didn't know Steve that well. We've all heard stories about Steve, but part of the reason that I respect him so much is because he wasn't afraid to come out and just say what had to be said.
Yeah.
And that may have hurt somebody's feelings, he didn't care. I mean, getting the point out there was more important than, trying to wear kid gloves around people. And I respect that about him. I haven't read Isaacson's book. I haven't obviously seen this movie, so I don't know. But clearly the Steve Jobs that I knew and, only meeting him a couple of times, and the Steve Jobs that Tim Cook knew are two different people.
Sure.
And that's where the lines are going to be drawn. The average person is going to see this movie, and that will be Steve Jobs. Friends and family will see this movie, and that, that's nowhere near to the Steve that they knew, the kind person.
Yeah.
And the media will be halfway in between because, they either respect him like I do, or, they've heard some good stories or whatever, but isn't that the way that all historical events are?
Exactly. And that's why I have this disagreement with Dave Hamilton. His argument is that these movies don't portray the real Steve Jobs, but you writing down your story of Steve Jobs doesn't portray the real Steve Jobs either. None of it is the real Steve Jobs. So it's saying that you should blog your story about that about Steve Jobs, whether you met him in a Chipotle one day, is to me utterly idiotic and so artsy fartsy hippie-ish that it just doesn't bear repeating. The Steve Jobs that it's like everything else. The Jim Dalrymple I know is different from the Jim Dalrymple somebody else might know, and the Shawn that Jim knows is different from the Shawn that someone else knows. No one's story is ever complete. It can't be by the nature of our truth and our reality. So Dave's story is, I think, ridiculous on its face. The point of view, though, that this movie can't tell the real Steve Jobs story is kind of difficult, because if it's based on the Walter Isaacson's book, which was blessed by Steve Jobs, wouldn't this movie be as close as we could possibly get to the real Steve Jobs?
Well, I mean, not necessarily. And I think, it's Hollywood.
Yeah.
They based it on the book. It doesn't mean it's exactly like the book. They could have taken scenes from somewhere else. They could have made shit up.
Yeah.
It's a movie based on the book. Doesn't mean anything. I mean, it could, based on the book, means that they could have just used Steve's name.
Yep.
And that's it. Everything else is just made up. So, you often hear people say, oh, I saw the movie, but I love the book more.
Yeah.
So, Hollywood does what it does, and they have to make something entertaining.
Yeah.
And, that's what this movie is. It's supposed to be entertaining, and, maybe it is. I don't know.
Speaking of supposed to be entertaining, you linked to a story on loopinsight.com about an hour ago, linking to an AppleInsider.com article. Microsoft's retail store chain flounders in stark contrast to busy Apple stores. When I read that headline on the Loop, it was, to me, self-evident. Obviously, this is true. But I go to Apple Insider to read the story, and there's no actual data there. It's all anecdotal. I have a problem with that. There's no information on the Apple Insider story that can say, yes, this is fact-based. All it is stories. We've all walked by an Apple store and seen it packed. We've all walked by a Microsoft store and seen more employees than customers. But that's still anecdotal, isn't it?
If you were Microsoft, would you want to release any information?
Well, I think part of it is the reason.
I know, and I don't disagree with you. I mean, but if they had have come out and said, this many visitors and this and that and all kinds of other things, then it just would have been a bunch of numbers. So sometimes I just thought it was very interesting that, Apple has hundreds of stores. They're continuing to grow. Microsoft came out, and I guess what got me the most is what I wrote in that story, that under Ballmer, Microsoft tried to copy everything that Apple did.
Yeah.
And everything that they tried to copy was a failure.
Yeah.
The iPod, the tablets, the phones, everything. It was just an utter failure. And I think one of the bigger things that they tried to copy were the retail stores. That, again, and I guess that's where I was going with this thing when I linked to it. There's no data, but it's the overall thing under Ballmer that everything Microsoft had to try and copy, and it did not work.
Yep.
One of the biggest, we've all seen the stores, Apple store packed right beside the Microsoft empty. And yeah, it's anecdotal. But still, I think if you take that along with all the other things that they tried to do, you kind of see a pattern there.
Yeah.
Samsung copied, but they sold millions of dollars worth of phones. And, they should be hung for that, but that's okay.
I would love to hear the inside baseball story of Microsoft and their decision to not only open these kinds of stores, which kind of makes sense, but their reason behind opening them in such close proximity intentionally to Apple stores. And why didn't they understand that, A, their stores were not going to be as popular as the Apple stores, and B, they were going to be negatively compared to those Apple stores every single time this story came up? Why didn't somebody at Microsoft see that and say, okay, we're going to open our own stores. We're not opening the same goddamn mall as the Apple store, though. There's lots of malls, guys. Pick some other place.
Right. And, it's not that Microsoft said, hey, retail, what a great idea.
Yeah.
Let's do that. No, they didn't do that. They copied the furniture. They copied the way that the employees are dressed. They copied everything, and that's just, come on. And, I gave Microsoft and still give Microsoft credit for the Surface, that they didn't blindly come out and copy Apple. I don't agree with their strategy. No. But that's my own personal opinion. And but I give them credit for coming out with something unlike Google and unlike Samsung, who just blindly copy whatever Apple does. Yeah. Microsoft came out with something new, a new idea. This is how we think tablets should be done. Good for you. Good for you. I think that's the way that it should be done. Competitors should come out and say, Apple, we don't believe you're doing it right. Here's the right way to do it. Consumers will make up their mind. Yeah. I don't, personally, I don't agree with them. But anyway.
That being said, I thought it was really interesting to see the reaction of folks of the Surface playbook. Sorry, the Surface book, and people raving about the design. To me, that design is awful. I think that design is asking for issues. You throw that thing with that giant gap in it. You throw that thing into a backpack. If this is a high school or a college student using this thing, you put that into a backpack. Stuff is going to get in there. It's going to scratch your screen. You're going to get gunk and stuff in the hinges. And it just, to me, it looks ugly. But people like Andy and Notco say this thing looks fantastic. What do you think?
I haven't obviously seen it in person.
No, never I.
But there's a couple of things that that Apple does really well, I think. They think of situations where you're going to use this. So they try and design it not just for design's sake, but also for the realities of life, right? And how you're going to use it. I don't know that. I don't have it right here. Read the headline from Amplified today.
Grab it real quick. Amplified, dynamic fulcrum hinge.
Yes, that's what Microsoft's hinge is called.
Yes.
The dynamic fulcrum hinge. Are you kidding me?
Why do they have to name their hinges?
So Apple comes up with things like 3D touch. Peek and pop. Microsoft comes up with the dynamic fulcrum hinge. You know, I mean, it's odd. So I don't know. I'm not impressed with what they released, and it's not because of Apple or anything else. I'm just not impressed with what they released. You know, I said this in what I posted about the Microsoft event too. I think in order to be impressed with what Microsoft put out, you need to buy in to the one OS strategy that they have.
Yes.
And I don't. So fundamentally, I have a problem with what they're doing from the very foundation of what Microsoft is trying to build.
I think that it is. I think it is certainly good that Microsoft is doing something different. They're at least trying something different. I think they're failing at it, as they often do. Last week, it was very interesting to hear Tim Cook come out and say, hopefully to put these rumors to rest for all time, that iOS was not going to become Mac OS 10 and vice versa, that they were going to continue on this two separate OS pathway, whereas Microsoft is doing the opposite. And they're saying they're going to have one operating system for all their devices. Both ideas can work if done in the right way. I have very little faith that Microsoft can do that in the right way. I have a lot of faith in Apple being able to do it their way.
Well, I think that, you know, much like Google, I have faith in not just that Apple can do it, but that Apple does it for the right reasons. You know, so when you say, I don't know that Microsoft can do it, that's a valid point, and that Apple can do it. But I think the underlying reason of why you believe that Apple can do it, not to put words in your mouth, is that you know that there are no ulterior motives for why Apple can do it. They want to make the experience good. They don't want your personal data. They don't want to know where you're going. They don't want to know anything. They just, I mean, come on, let's be honest. They're a company. They want you to buy stuff.
Yes.
But they don't care about anything else. They don't care where you go on the web. Don't care about anything. You know, that's the way it should be.
I think that feeds into the next story that was surprising but not surprising to a lot of us. This whole Porsche, Google, and Apple story that happened, that Porsche said that they had started to work with Google to do their Android Auto system. But Porsche said certain pieces of data must be collected and transmitted back to Mountain View, California. Stuff like vehicle speed, throttle position, coolant and oil temp, engine revs. Basically, Google wants a complete OBD2 dump whenever someone activates Android Auto. Apple, by way of stark contrast, only wants to know if the car is moving while Apple Play is in use. Why the hell would Google want or need to know throttle position, engine revs, coolant temps?
Well, I mean, Google wants to know everything.
Yeah.
They want to know everything. And like the guy from Motor Trend said, here's a company that's making a car of their own and you want us to give you that information?
That's a good point, yeah. Yep.
I mean, and I agree with them. I do. I think at some point, and I jokingly posted a tweet yesterday that said, Google is like that creepy uncle at a family reunion that gets drunk and asks you too many inappropriate questions.
That's right.
And I wish I had a thought of this, but somebody else came back and said, and then shares your answers with everybody.
And then that tells your mom. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. But that's what they're like. They're like, they want so much information about you, and that's not right. It's just not.
If they had a valid reason for wanting it, I would maybe say yes. But this sort of tell us everything, goes to the whole issue of privacy that's been so prevalent over the last couple of years. But as everyone keeps saying, Google is making their own goddamn car.
Right.
Why would Porsche share that data with them?
If you're Porsche, then you don't want to give Google that information. Obviously, there's there has to be a cap on the amount of information that you use. Now, for Apple to say we want to know if the car is moving or not,
yeah,
they don't want to know how fast you're going. They don't want to know anything else, just if the car is moving or not. And there could be very valid reasons for that. If they know that the car is moving, maybe they don't bring up messages.
Yeah.
Or they bring up a warning or something like that. That's all they want to know.
Yep.
That sounds reasonable to me. You want to know if the car is moving? Okay.
Yeah.
We can tell you if the car is moving or not. That's it. Not how fast it's going, what the oil temperature is. Are you pressing the screen? Yep. Is the car moving?
And make no mistake about it, I certainly believe that if Apple was asking for the same data from Porsche, Porsche would have told them no, too, because Apple is rumored to be working on their own iCar. I don't believe that, but they're rumored to be doing that. So Porsche isn't just kissing Apple's ass because they like Apple. They're pushing back against Google, collecting far too much data than Google actually needs to run the Android Auto system. Porsche was saying, we wanted to use Android Auto. We like the system. But because of what the system is demanding that we send back to Google, they went with Apple CarPlay instead. Do you think this is going to cause other manufacturers to look at their contracts with Google and find out whether they're needing to do this with Google? And will the media push back on other companies and ask them? This is what's important to me. Will the media push back on companies that already use Android Auto and ask them, are you sending this data to Google? Does Ford?
I think that's a good question. Yeah. I doubt that they will ask it. Because similar to, there's two companies out there that seem to be able to get away with anything. Google and Amazon can get away with anything. And the media won't ask them. Amazon says, we sold 20% more Kindles, and everybody claps.
Yeah.
Well, what the hell does that mean?
Doesn't mean shit.
It doesn't mean shit. It really doesn't. Google, how many times have we reported on malware and viruses and things on Android, and nobody seems to care.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. But if there's an iOS thing, like those Chinese people that get people to download a fake copy of Xcode, oh my God, the media is insane. Now, how many people were reasonably affected by that? Not a lot.
That's right.
Not a lot. And the reason that they were affected is mostly because of the Chinese government, not because of Apple. Right?
Yep.
But still, this is an Apple problem, and it's something that Apple has to deal with. Well, yeah. Okay, so what's Google's problem again? Oh, yeah. You can't even turn the thing on without getting infected. And
Yeah.
I know. Don't email me, because I know that's an exaggeration. God.
Folks, we've been talking to Jim Dalrymple on The Loop. The Loop magazine is out. Check it out. Updated for iOS 9 and new issue. Was a lot of issues in updating the Loop software to iOS 9, Jim?
Not so much a lot of issues. What we wanted to do, I didn't go into detail, but basically we rewrote the whole back end of the app.
Yeah.
So, the app sits on the back end, and then you have, all the front end. So we wanted to make it a lot faster doing everything. So we rewrote the entire back end, and we added stuff like universal search and all that. So now you can go in, press the search button, and search for like MacBook, and it goes through every single issue instantaneously and comes up with links to stories in the magazine now.
Cool.
So very cool stuff.
You can download the Loop magazine app for the iPhone and the iPad for free. Subscriptions are a measly $2 per month. Speaking of $2 per month, real quick, our good friend Mosquito in the IRC chat room wrote on Loop Insight today. People are complaining about paying $5 for the updated version for Twitter 4. And Mosquito's got a great line. He says, seriously, anyone who complained about the cost at this level of something they use every hour has a chronic affliction that should be treated. Stop whining about paying $5 for Twitter 4, kids. I got no money.
Yeah.
I paid for it because I use it every 35 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
I thought you were going to say his words were "kiss my ass," so that would have been just as profound.
Good. Just as good. Check out.
Because I don't understand it either. It's a cup of coffee.
Yeah. And I don't even like using the coffee analogy. To me, if they had charged $50 for this app, I would have said no. But it's $5. It's on sale. Even at $10. Yep. This is an app. It comes on. It works on your iPad. Works on your iPhone. It's got a whole bunch of new features, a whole bunch of new functionality, and it's something I use every 35 seconds. I'm going to pay $5 for it.
I'm with you.
Folks, been talking to Jim Dalrymple.
Absolutely.
Been talking to Jim Dalrymple on The Loop at loopinsight.com. He has 2 podcasts and a magazine up on the Apple Store. Check it out, Amplified and the Dalrymple Report. Jim, thanks for joining me, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Shawn.
Have a good night. See ya.
Bye.
That was Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. You can turn your microphone back on. I forgot to do this off the top of the show. I have to do that hand clap thing. So hang on a second. I use this to sync up. All right, 3, 2, 1. Sorry if that hurt anyone's ears, but I forgot to do that off the top, so I'll do it now. Why do you give me that look? Don't know. I just am. I'm giving you that look. There was an interesting story on The Loop about digital books and the differences between e-books and physical print books. You are a Kindle user, and you like your Kindle.
Yeah.
You brought no books with you to Mexico.
No.
But you brought your Kindle.
But I didn't read that much.
Yeah, you read it a bit. But you don't read your Kindle books on your iPhone, do you?
No.
Why not?
Because I have a Kindle.
Yes, I understand that. But like right now, if why are you sitting there with your phone on your wrist like that, on your forearm?
So it doesn't vibrate on the table and make a lot of noise.
You could put it in your pocket.
I could. So why don't I what?
So you don't read on your iPhone. Read Kindle books on the iPhone. You know you can, though, right?
Look, it's freaking tiny. Okay. Have you seen one?
Exactly. That's the point I was trying to get to. But you know you can read Kindle on the iPad and the iPhone. But you also read
real books.
Physical books. You've just started a new series of books.
The Outlander series.
From Diane
Gabaldon.
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 All right, not Gabaldon. Do you have a preference? If I said no, you can only pick one or the other. You have to either read paper books or you have to read digital books, e-books, Kindle books. You can't use the other. Which would you choose?
Probably the Kindle. It's lighter. It always remembers where you are when you switch it off. When it goes back, you don't have to have a bookmark. And it has that backlit page where you can read at night without putting a huge light on. I like that. You can't do that with a book.
Okay. It's an interesting viewpoint. The advantages of a digital book, of a paper book, though, is you lose your place where you have a bookmark.
Mm-hmm.
You fold the page over. No big deal.
Yeah.
I can get secondhand print books. I can't
Yeah.
get secondhand.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love the most, and don't ever let me do this, walking into a secondhand or used bookstore,
Mm-hmm.
I'm done. The rest of my day is shot.
Mm-hmm. There's a
Forget
good one
about
on Wellington Street in
it.
Chilliwack.
Don't ever let me go in
The
because
Bookman.
yeah, it's I can't leave.
I know, I like
will,
it too.
I will buy literally a box of books. Downside of books is that they're
There's an even better one in Hope.
jeez.
They're only $1 each, every book.
The problem is, you too, but for those of us who are nomads and move too much, books are a pain in the ass to
Very
move.
heavy, yes.
My entire library of books could fit on my iPad, but
Mhm.
I need 50 boxes to put all the books I used to have.
Yeah.
I think I would choose reading on the iPad too.
Yeah.
As much as I love the sensation of books, I love the just holding a book, feeling a book. See, that's why I
You
wanted you to do
can't
this.
beat old books, though, like from history, like and antiquities. That's like awesome to touch them.
Yet you didn't want to see the Book of Kells. You're so weird.
Yeah, that's weird.
The problem, though, is this is also the upside downside. The old books, or even hardcover books, are a pain in the butt to read in bed.
Mm.
I was surprised when we were in Mexico how many people I saw reading
Real
books.
Yeah.
I was really. I'd be willing to bet.
But
maybe,
it's probably because they traveled from quite a way and they don't want to lose their Kindle, like their electronic device. It doesn't cost as much.
I think it also might be them being on the beach. You can drop your book in the sand,
true.
and bad things won't happen to it. Maybe that's part of it. But out of the people that we saw reading on the beach, at least 3/4 of them had a book, had an actual physical book. I saw very few people reading on. Did I see? I think I saw one other person besides you reading on a Kindle. Most other folks were doing something on a phone or a tablet. I don't know if they were reading, but they weren't. They were doing something. That was a big surprise to me. So many people were reading paperback books on the beach. I think that's the reason why. It's because they know that if you drop it, if it gets wet, if somebody spills something on it, you'll be okay. I wish I could have a real library, like a real room, big room in the house that had all the books I've read and wanted to read. I would much rather read a book, a physical book, but they can be more expensive. They're not as flexible from a reading point of view. As Kim pointed out, you need a light. And as we get older, I need the fonts to be bigger. When I read, I have to have a light over my shoulder shining down in the book. You don't have to. Your eyes are pretty good in lowish light. Close up.
Yeah.
But the Kindle, because of the backlighting of it, you can read real easy. And obviously the iPad, you can too. It's interesting. What do you guys think about books versus e-books or digital books? Do you have a preference? If I made you choose, which would you choose? Would you choose the traditional paper dead tree editions, or would you choose a Kindle type device or your iPad to read books on? Send me emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. As always, love getting emails from you guys. Always appreciate that you guys send me emails during the week. Got an email right here from our friend Les Posen. Wirecast Pro with El Capitan. iPhone 6 camera uses the screen. The pic of me is the FaceTime cam. Yes, that's Wirecast Pro. Les, I don't have Wirecast Pro. I'm using the YouTube version of it because Wirecast Pro costs way too much for what I'm doing with it. I haven't found out whether or not the YouTube version is. If you can find out, Wes, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much, buddy, for the emails. Mosquito says, we're looking to add a move fairly soon. Most of our books are already packed. It's a desert in here, but there are 20 immovable boxes, too. Mosquito says, the last book I read on the beach was Leander Caney's one about jobs. Absolutely disposable. Way too many e-books that were quickly converted are full of sloppy errors that make them unreadable. That's absolutely true. There's a lot of, especially in the early days, really, really poorly done ebooks that drove a lot of people off the platform. And DJ McIntosh uses audiobooks because DJ is legally blind, mainly from Audible. There are books I can read on a screen, says Mo, because I don't care as much about the form they take. And Mo being a designer, he cares about the form the books take. Arkstein asked DJ McIntosh, does increasing the text size zoom make a difference? I love Audible books and use them for a long time for my daily commute. I can't listen to Audible books. Can you?
I don't mind. I have to be somewhere where I'm not distracted.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have to be either, sunbathing or somewhere where I can
Microphone.
close my eyes and
Microphone, thank you.
focus. I have to focus on what somebody's saying to me. So
I don't like audiobooks because I'm so tuned to voices that if the person who's reading the audiobook doesn't have a great voice, I can't listen to it.
Like the books Eckhart Tolle wrote.
I don't know that one.
I've forgotten what they're called now. But he did an audio version. And because of his very strong accent, Scandinavian accent, I think it was really hard to listen to.
Yeah.
To it. Yeah.
Speaking of hard to listen to or watch, you and I quickly perused the new Apple ads that were posted this past weekend. I think they were on TV. I'm going to assume that they were on TV this weekend. The train, cycle, date, sing, sprinkle, ride. I wasn't that impressed with these ads, to be absolutely honest with you. They were 15-second ads.
Maybe one or two out of the 4 or 5 you showed me. Yeah.
They didn't grab me.
No.
They didn't make me want to buy the product, which so many other ads, Apple ads do. They make you go, geez, I want to go to the store and see that in action. Whatever that was, I want to go buy that thing. These ones...
This was more advertising to those people that already have it, I think.
The one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not, but...
But I think it was. It's more...
Why would you advertise people who've already bought your product?
Well, not that they've already bought them, but it's like this. If you were this type of person, this is what you could have done already had you had an Apple Watch. It's more, I don't know. Yeah.
I just wasn't impressed. What do you guys think? Monty says this set of ads feels like they were made by a different ad agency than all of Apple's other ads. They just feel off. Remember, Apple has taken a lot of their ad stuff in-house. These may be in-house ads, which is why you may get that feeling, Monty, as opposed to these being TBWA Shy a Day ads. Maybe that's what it is, or maybe they've gone a different direction. I just don't like them. Overall, as a series of 6 ads, I didn't like them. They didn't grab my attention. They didn't excite me. They didn't make me want to. That's the other thing about Apple ads, too. They make me want to show other people. They make me want to email them to friends and post on Facebook. Hey, cool ad. These ones didn't do anything for me, which I found very interesting. I watched them again later to make sure I wasn't misinterpreting it. But I still felt the same way the second time around. They just didn't do anything for me. Email on air at yourmaclifeshow.com if you have thoughts or opinions about Apple's new ads. This past weekend, this past Saturday, Kim and I went on a worldwide photo walk. No, we didn't walk around the world. But what we did do was join Scott Kelby's worldwide photo walk. Kelby1.com/photo walk is the website if you wanted to go and check it out. Scott's been doing this now for the past 8 years. This was the 8th edition of the photo walk. I've been a walk leader. I was a walk leader on the first one. I was a walk leader on the second one. And I think there was a couple others there in between moves where I was a walk leader for the worldwide photo walks. Always on a Saturday, generally in October, and always a lot of fun. The thing for me is, the thing that captures my imagination the most about these photo walks is the idea that, where was it on the website? Where'd it go? There were 1,000 photo walks, which I think is down from previous ones, with 21,000 photographers. And what that means is that 21,000 photographers on Saturday, October 3rd, at some point during the day, morning, afternoon, evening, went out to shoot photos for this group, with this group in cities around the world. There were several here in Vancouver. I don't know if they got a map, but if you go to the kelby1.com photo walk website, you'll see a map of all the different locations of photo walks. So there were 272 in Europe, 130 in Australia, 462 in, looks like, the UK. There were 3 in Alaska, for crying out loud. There was 1 in Reykjavik and 1 in Greenland. So they were literally around the world. They had these photo walks. And the neat thing is, you don't have to be a pro. This is not, even though Scott Kelby is a pro photographer and a pro Photoshop guy, the walks aren't necessarily designed for specifically pros. They're for anybody who wants to go hang out and shoot photos. You can see the countries on the side: Australia, Denmark, Philippines, Brazil, Spain, all kinds of places. And as you might expect, there's some spectacular photos here. There's some perfectly mundane photos here. There's perfectly ordinary, good photos, but ordinary subject matter of some of these photos. What you do is you sign up, and then you meet up with the photo walk leader. In this case, it was me. You meet up with the photo walk leader, and you just wander around an area of the city or town that you joined up in. Some of them are very special. Some of them will go to special locations. Some of them will go to the woods, as you see here. Some of them will go to just towns and homes in your area. Some will go to famous places. Some will go to unfamous places. For example, we took our group to Granville Island here in Vancouver. Granville Island is one of the more photogenic places in Vancouver. If you get a chance to go, it's a really kind of a neat space. It's an industrial space. It's the location of the Emily Carr College of Art and Design, so it's kind of an art space too for students. It's a farmer's market. They've got some great, amazing food, expensive but amazing food in the farmer's market. It's right on the waterfront, so there's all kinds of waterfront type photography. There's boats and paddlers going by, and people come down to walk their dogs. It's great for people watching. It's a really neat location. It was a lot of fun taking folks around the Granville Island area and seeing what we could see and seeing how we could see. I think that's the big thing for me, for a lot of folks, is teaching folks how to see things. We quite often wander around these spaces that we've been to 1,000 times, but don't pay attention to them from a photographic or visual point of view. This shoe that I saw was just on a set of stairs, and everyone walked by it. People just weren't paying attention to it. But because I was thinking as a photographer, I saw that shoe. The shadows in the wall. I was thinking about being a photographer, so I shot the shadows on the wall. That's the key for these kind of photo walk things, is rather than just taking your camera and wandering around hoping to see something, if you go out with a photo walk, whether it's the Scott Kelby photo walks or you've joined a local photography group, if you've gone to meetup.com and signed up for a local photography group in your area, they'll often do these meetups that are photo walks. That's what my meetups are almost always focused on, is going on a walk somewhere. And what happens when you do that is, rather than just wandering around aimlessly and hoping to see something, you go up with a group of photographers and you get yourself into a photography mindset. You start thinking as a photographer. You start thinking about photography. Rather than just sort of walking in the street and maybe something catches your eye, if you go to these kinds of locations that are already photogenic and start looking around for things, you're more likely to get better pictures because you're focused on being a photographer as opposed to being a pedestrian, or as opposed to just walking from here to there and not thinking about what's going on around you. The the spot with the shadows. I've walked by that spot a dozen times, but never thought to look for the shadows up against the wall. Next time I go to Granville Island, I'll actually go to that spot again to get more shots of people's shadows up against that wall. So if you're not involved in a photography group, if you want to get better being a photographer, like I always say, take a class, read a book, but you got to hang out with other photographers too. You got to hang out with people you can ask questions of. If you go, and that's the other key thing too, is if you go on a photography walk and you don't feel like people are willing to answer your questions, find a different group or start your own group. You should never be involved with a bunch of folks because it's not a walk then. It's not a communal event. It's a bunch of people going in one spot and then dispersing. You want to be able to ask this guy what lens he's using. What's that square thing on your camera? You want to be able to ask this girl what's the f-stop you're shooting. You want to be able to ask this person. She was actually posing for this shot for a bunch of folks. You want to be able to ask people, hey, would you mind standing right there so I can take this shot? This guy's had my favorite face. I had everyone taking pictures of each other, and this is the group. So it's one of the things I tell folks about. Go out thinking like a photographer. Focus on being a photographer, and your shots will get better because you're focused on doing it as opposed to hoping something happens to you. What kind of shots did you get, Kim? Did you get anything that
I
you
took
liked?
mostly bits and things and stuff. I don't like people. I don't like people, so I took pictures of fire, cars, like what's the word? Logos on cars.
I think it's utterly hilarious that
dogs.
that you say that, and it's true. If you look at Kim's photographs, you rarely take pictures of people. You don't like people in your photos. Why not?
Because I don't like people for the most part.
Oh dear. Monty says, Shawn, I like the shoe on the wall shot. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Monty. My favorite one was the steering wheel, the boat wheel. What is that called?
Yeah, I forgot what it's called, but there's a name for it. Yeah. Helm. Take the helm, and it's
it's a steering. It's not steering wheel.
It's called something else. I know.
Captain's wheel? No. Anyway, that's my favorite shot because I wasn't expecting that shot.
Yeah.
I didn't see that shot until I just I was standing around waiting for folks to sort of mill around, and I turned and looked and went, oh, crap, look at that. It really came out nicely on the shot. I really liked it. Come on, folks. Waiting for the folks in the RC chat room to the steering wheel on a boat. The helm is the place where you steer the boat. Mm-hmm. The actual physical device that you turn. Oh, that's annoying.
Mm-hmm. I know. I think there is a.
There's a proper ship's wheel. No, not ship's wheel.
Well, you do say that. Take the helm. You just say you take the helm, but I don't know what that's called. The actual steering wheel.
People who say ship's wheel too. All right. Well, we shall see. Other folks may have other answers. What are you laughing at?
Nothing.
You're lying. What are you laughing at?
Because I take pictures of things, not cars. I mean, of people.
Why is that funny?
Well, because some people think it's weird.
Okay. Our friend Scott Randall in Long Island. He wrote this about Jim and I. He wanted me to mention it to Jim, but there's no reason to, dude. He was talking about he tried installing El Capitan on the internal clone drive, and the installation failed. Tried several times. Wiped and reformatted the drives, did a clean install. That worked, except it would not let me bring anything over from my main drive. Going through the installer log, I could see that the installer balked at my music files and music fonts. Don't like any of them. The following software will not work with El Capitan: Finale, Sibelius, Pro Tools, Microsoft Office 2016, Tech Tool Pro, Finder Pop. This is what I'm talking about. When you upgrade to major new software like this, you've got to make sure your stuff that you rely on, especially if you're a pro and you're relying on this stuff for making money, you got to make sure your apps will work in the new version of the OS. Scott in Long Island found this out. So now I keep the El Capitan install on my extra drive to experiment with. I'm now just going through all of its features to learn them, and I'll begin adding applications one at a time to see how they work. A lot has to be fixed, mostly by application makers, before I can move to El Capitan full-time. In the meantime, I do like what I'm seeing as I experiment. El Capitan is fast, and I like many of the new features. Shawn, this one's just for you. You keep talking about your slow Wi-Fi, and last week you said it was because of your provider's crummy router. Can't you just buy your own good router like the Apple Airport or the Asus, which is also very good? I had the latter. My Wi-Fi is pretty fast. Or will your ISP not allow you to use your own router? Scott, buying a new fast router will not make any difference because our Wi-Fi speed in general here sucks. From the router to the internet sucks. We are supposed to get 5 megabytes down, 1 megabyte up. For you non-geeks out there, don't worry about that. But for the geeks there, they all went, what? Yeah, we're in rural British Columbia, and we're lucky to get those speeds. We get nowhere near those speeds. 2 megabytes down, half megabyte up is what I usually say. There's no point in buying a new fast router when the problem isn't the router, it's the internet speed itself. Our internet sucks. There's no way around it. So there's that. But thanks for the idea, though. This has got to drive you absolutely nuts.
Who, me?
No.
Oh.
No, when this happens. It drove me nuts when I first had it happen. I updated to El Capitan yesterday, and now Photos opens every time I insert an SD card. No preference that I can find to make it stop. I don't use or even want Photos for any reason. I use Lightroom. How do I keep Photos from opening? I take thousands of photos in a single day, and anything that slows me down is a major problem. This is making me crazy. You say, Bill, that it's an El Capitan issue, but I'm having that issue with Photos, not with El Capitan. It's a Photos issue. When you installed Photos, it took over, thank you, Apple, it took over all your photo management stuff. And stupidly, even though you select that thing that says don't do this again, it still does it. What you have to do counterintuitively is open image capture. Make sure your device, whether it be your camera or your SD card or your iPhone, make sure that's plugged in. Open up image capture, and in the lower left-hand side, a little itty-bitty, teeny-tiny little arrow, you click on that, and then in the pop-up window, choose no application, or choose Lightroom, or choose whatever app you want to have open when you insert that SD card. Save it, close down image capture, and it'll stop happening. But it's one of those annoying things that didn't happen before, and now you install or download Photos, and it happens. Because Apple didn't ask you, would you like Photos to take over everything regarding photography on your Macintosh? They didn't do that. They just went ahead and did it. And it really pissed me off because they give you the option of never having this happen again in Photos, but it still happens. You got to go to image capture to turn it off. Our friend Maurice Chevalier in Calgary just finished listening to last night's show. Sound quality was great. You asked about El Capitan and if we were going to install it. I have 4 Macs, 2 Mac Pros, 1 MacBook Air, and 1 MacBook. On my 2 laptops, I installed it this weekend. I'm not sure if it will go on the MacBook, but we'll find out. I need to wait. Again, he's waiting to see if my applications on my MacBook Air are compatible, as I have some quirky science apps. On my Mac Pros, I will not install it for a while on my work machine. Again, this is because of the science apps. My home Mac Pro is an interesting one. It's a first-generation Mac Pro, the 1.1 model, which is not supported past OS 10.7.5. However, thanks to the geek community, I'm running Yosemite 10.10.5, and it's already fast. I'll have to wait for the geek community to come up with another fix for this machine. Also, I'm going to wait until I install the new CPUs I bought for it. This will take it from a quad-core to an octo-core. As Maurice says, why would I do this? Because he can. Congratulations, by the way. It's his 30th anniversary of working at the university. 30 years working in the same place is always mind-boggling to me. Anonymous would like to say, I'm sorry to hear that the Alex Gibney Apple documentary seems biased. You mentioned that you've watched his other documentary, Going Clear, Scientology in the Prison of Belief. I have no doubt of the veracity of the claims made in the Scientology documentary because I was a Scientologist for 30 years. Half of that as a staff member of the Scientology org And what the interviewees say is similar to what I experienced. I thought this would mean his Apple documentary would be similarly well-researched. He made a crack recently comparing similarities between the devotion of the Scientologist and the Apple fan. I've always thought there were similarities. Both have releases that are presented in similar ways. Both have devotees. But like you've said many times in the past, stop insinuating that Apple is a cult or a religion. Apple enhances my life. Scientology severely damaged it. Yeah, I was disappointed. Oh, sorry. Itchy foot. I was very disappointed in the Gibney Steve Jobs documentary for the same reason, because the Going Clear Scientology one rang true, never having been involved in Scientology, but rang true for all the other things I've read about Scientology. It seemed like it was in line with those things. But the Steve Jobs man in the machine thing was patently wrong in places, making it seem like the multicolored iMac was the first iMac that ever came out. Well, we all know that wasn't true. They had Joe Nocera, a guy who's known to be critical, most of the time unfairly, of Apple, saying that he didn't understand why people love the iPhone so much. In his words, it's just a phone. Well, that struck me as very odd, because if you believe the iPhone is just a phone, you don't know shit about the iPhone. Mm-hmm. I think that's the least important aspect of the iPhone, that it's a phone. It's certainly the feature I use the least.
Yeah, I don't use... Well, no, but I mean, I use everything else more.
Yeah.
Facebook, Twitter.
The
internet.
I use all the...
Weather,
photos.
Yeah, photos.
Uploading.
Camera a lot.
I use all of that stuff.
Yeah.
More than I use...
And texting. More than a phone.
More than as a phone. So for him to say it's just a phone would make me go, why are you in this documentary? You obviously don't understand, because the point of the point of that segment was, why do people love their iPhones? Why do people love Apple products? Mm-hmm. You have this guy on who doesn't even understand Apple products, so why would he be in that segment? You know what I mean? It was just an odd. I wouldn't say don't watch it. It just was an oddly done movie. I'm looking forward to the Aaron Sorkin film, if only because I like watching this stuff. I don't expect it to be accurate, 100%. I expect it to have the same kind of errors that other movies based on events will have. I think it'll be better done than the Gibney one. I don't think it'll be a great movie, although there's obviously been a big promotion behind it. There's lots of folks who are wanting to...
Ooh.
Who's calling you?
I don't know. Somebody's calling me, but I'm not going to answer it. Because that would be rude.
There's the Apple event follow-up from our friend Jason Painter in Sydney, Australia. Very happy with the event. He ordered the Apple Watch Band product Red. He ordered the iPhone 6S. He's going to get the Apple TV and the iPad Pro. Like in your case, our exchange rate is onerous. Last year, I bought the same tier iPhone for $1,000 Australia. This year, it's $230 Australia more, but it's the same price in the U.S.
Wow.
That's got to piss you off. That's really got to crank you up. To have the same price in the U.S., yet a year later, it's going to cost you $230 more. Will you stop texting during the show?
I'm not. It's just if my phone keeps ringing.
Give me your phone.
No, I'm going to just...
Give me your phone.
Nope.
Give me your phone.
No, it's very personal. My phone is very personal to me. I'll ignore it. I'm not answering it.
Yes, but you're typing on it. Put the phone down.
Oh, dear.
I've seen the new watches, and I think it's great. There's more variety. The gold looks good. The new band options are welcome, and product Red is exactly the shade I had hoped for. There are many unanswered questions about the Apple TV. Can I really control my Sony TV? It's got the HDMI standard for control, but I heard it's flaky. It's got an IR port for at least countries that don't have Siri. But can it be used to learn IR signals so you can fall back on an IR blaster approach to controlling the TV? How exactly will it work with iTunes libraries? I've got a massive library, a lot of video I've ripped from discs. I would hate that to be poorly supported. I wouldn't, Jason, I'm with you. The fact that the Apple TV, the fact the Apple TV cannot play content that my Macintosh can pisses me off. The fact that I have to rip a lot of files because while they'll play on the Macintosh, they won't play on the Apple TV. It's just annoying. I would wait to buy the Apple TV until you know it can do the things that you want it to do. It's one of the reasons why I find the Apple TV by itself less useful. And I may be an edge case because I download videos from the web of my motorcycle races because they don't show up here in Canada. They're not shown on TV, MotoGP and World Superbike and British Superbike and all that kind of stuff. I don't get those at all on American TV or American Canadian TV, so I have to download them. But then I got to re-encode them so the Apple TV can play them, or I use an app to broadcast from my Macintosh through the Apple TV onto my television set. It's a real annoyance. A giant pain in the butt. Monty Freeman. Monty sent me this actually a month ago. Monty, thank you. I know you've tried a bunch of photo manipulation apps. I'm looking for one that will let me draw on a photo stored in my camera roll. I had one that was simple and I liked, but the developer has stopped supporting it. I just need to occasionally draw a circle or box around something in a picture to document or explain something. Anything you've used that springs to mind. I don't know of an app that does that, Monty, that lets you just draw a circle around something. I don't know that because the ones I've always used have always been text on an app. Over is one of them, Typorama. Now, those apps may allow you to do that, but if anyone else has any other ideas of apps that will let you just draw on a picture, basically import into the app, and then let you draw on the picture with your finger, let me know. Send me an email to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. I want to get to Monty some help. Or Monty, if you've already found that, let me know. Send me an email to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. What else we got going on? Robert Studer. I still like reading hardbound books, and I was surrounded by them as a child. My father was a newspaper editor. He wrote and read all the time. I was rather expected to like reading. I liked escaping into other worlds, so fiction was my obsession, though I read my fair share of political, economic, science, and philosophy books. I have read books on my iPhone, using both iBooks and the Kindle app, but the experience is not the same as a well-crafted book. I have tried reading on my MacBook Pro with the Kindle app rotated 90 degrees, and that's much closer to reading a physical book, but I miss the feel and even the smell of a good book. I don't know is there much of a smell to a paperback book?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Not as much as obviously a leather bound.
But that's more of a musty old smell, right?
Yeah,
for paperbacks?
Which is a good smell. Sometimes.
Yeah, I guess you might describe it like that. What kind of books do you like in particular to read?
Metaphysics.
Yeah.
Like Power of the Mind, positive thinking, self-help.
I read so much fact-based stuff, nonfiction, in college. I've really gotten away from...
No shit. Fact is nonfiction? Well, I'm glad you told me that. That's just funny. That was as bad as some of those baseball commentators yesterday. He's good with lefties or righties. Like, oh, he's really good with both sides, whether they bat with this hand or that hand. It's like, yeah, you already said that. Yes. Okay. So you like to read so much fact that wasn't fiction. Yes. Pray do go on.
Did you just go to the bathroom?
Probably. I should.
So much nonfiction stuff in college. I really got away from it later in life.
Mm-hmm.
I'll read a lot of fiction stuff on the iPad. I read a lot of news and a lot of opinions and stories along those lines. When I'm picking up a book, it's almost always a fiction book, and I really like, probably because it appeals to the nerd in me, the techno thrillers, the Tom Clancy type things, that have a lot of tech in them, and not as much. And we mentioned before on other shows, not as much science fiction anymore, because science fiction tends to be serialized so much now that it just pisses me off that I've got to wade through 10 different books before I get to the end of your story. So for me, it's more a lot of techno thrillers. I really liked, for a while, that I was really into. This was great for used bookstores. The old detective noir books, the Sam Spade type books, the old detective thrillers that movies were made of. I was always a big fan of those. This is from a while back. Lauren Finkelstein. I've only ever had them. We're talking about Brussels sprouts. I've only ever had them boiled or steamed. I don't like them. Can you imagine if you had only ever had chicken boiled or steamed and didn't like it, and so you refused to try fried chicken because of that? Compare a chicken salad sandwich to chicken parmesan. That doesn't make any sense. You might not like sprouts in any preparation. You don't need to try, but there's a whole world of flavors available in different preparations. P.S. I've yet to find a recipe where I like them either. Yeah, Brussels sprouts are yucky. I'm sorry. There's no way around it. There's just no way around it. Don Beck says, you mentioned a photo editing app that allows you to add text to photos. I use one called Label Box. I rarely use it, but I thought you might be interested in one place that I do. I've labeled my lock screen. He's got it set up so that if he's taking a picture and use Label Box to write, like, those labels that the spin little wheel and get the sticky bit that comes out? Yes. It looks like a label maker type thing.
Things, yeah.
If found, and he has his phone number and an email address, which is very clever. That's on his lock screen. So if he loses the phone, someone pushes the home button. It says, if found, please call Dawn at this number.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Very clever idea, Dawn.
That's a very cool idea.
Yeah, thank you very much. Folks, that's it for tonight's show. I want to say thanks very much to our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com for joining us on the show. As always, thanks to you guys for being part of the show. Send me emails all the time during the week to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. Until next week, she's been
Kim Guy.
And I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!